Hello and welcome to the Objective Music Report, the only source of objectively correct music criticism on the internet. And today we're going to be reviewing Jpegmafia's latest album, LP. The offline version, of course, but maybe that's the best place to start. So, if you didn't know, there are two versions of this album that exist. There's an offline one and there's an online one, even though it's not really a very useful term, seeing as both are only available on online platforms. The online version is the one you're going to see on streaming services if you look it up. The offline version, you have to go on Bandcamp. I believe it's the only place it's available right now. But neither have any sort of like physical medium. Now, of these two versions, it feels like, from basically everything I've seen, that Jpegmafia intends the offline version to be like the more official of the two versions. And I guess that would make sense. And this just sort of feels like inarguable in a sense because, I mean, the whole reason we got the offline version is because there were samples. I know Hazard Duty Pay. I know the Britney Spears interpolation on Thought's Prayer, because like we weren't able to get those songs on an official version because they couldn't clear those samples. I mean, it makes sense that he would go ahead and make a Bandcamp version that's not going to be getting as much commercial attention, so he could release it the way he wanted it to be. And I think it's a very noble goal. I think it's actually a good sort of workaround, compromise to, I mean, obviously you don't want to just use, I mean, I don't really care that much, but I mean, obviously there is an argument to be made that maybe you shouldn't just sample anyone's stuff and anything. I mean, I honestly wouldn't care if you could, again, but whatever. I mean, it's understandable, and I think that's an alright thing. I mean, it's very, I think it reflects very well on him that he's willing to, like, put all this work into making this more official version. He's probably not getting a very big, like, financial boost from it, But anyways, I think the distinction between online and offline versions is interesting because, for one, it kind of gives you, like, a look into, like, the creative direction. You guys know how much I, like, simped over Donda by Kanye for doing this. Like, Kanye, doing all those listening parties and let us see all these things and, like, releasing, like, this, like, White Album-esque sort of, like, monstrosity of, like, all these different songs. Now I have the deluxe version of that. I'm not going to be reviewing that. But I think it's really interesting that it kind of gives us a sense to look into, like, the creative direction. Like, oh, what did he decide to do here? What did the label, like, tell him to put in this version versus that version? What did he ultimately want to do? What was he forced to compromise to do? I think you get sort of an interesting look at it through that way. But I think it also plays into, like, a greater narrative around the album. I mean, I kind of hinted at it where there's a lot of very pointed attacks against his label. And I mean, going up in the run-up to the album, Peggy was, like, complaining about his label, how they were, like, a lot of it was sample-related, as you'd expect. And people were theorizing that, like, this, like, scuffling he's had with his label, apparently he's dropped the label. He's going to be releasing music independently from now on. People were theorizing that this has something to do with, like, the actual name of the album. And I have, like, some doubts about this idea. Not only, like, I feel like that makes sense. Like, you make an album called LP, and it's, like, these lazily, hastily thrown together, like, poorly done demos, sort of in, like you do, like, the least amount of effort required, to get off of that contract. But this is obviously, like, very obviously a passion project. A lot of heart and soul, blood, sweat, and tears went into LP. And so it doesn't really feel like it'd be like I don't know why you'd make, like, this masterful album and then, just give it a weird, like, sort of stupid name to give a middle finger to your label. I don't know what that accomplishes for you. I don't know why you'd go through all that effort and then be like, yeah, this is just a protest album, I think the name is probably, I mean, he had, like, this sort of thing going on with EP2. And maybe, I think it's probably more reflective of, like, the nature of the album, because I think so far it is his, like, least, not necessarily cohesive, because, I mean, he's never been, like, a super, like, this is song A, this is song B, this is the chorus, this is the verse, Like, it's never been like that. There's always been lots of transitions, and I mean, that's what I love about his music. But I think this is maybe his most, like, least pointed, in a sense that I think it's, like, his least. There's less of, like, maybe an aesthetic through line. I think there are, like, obviously similarities between all the different songs, but I think there is, like, a disjointed nature to it that I actually think I enjoy. And I think it makes it a lot more interesting to listen to. And I think that's kind of why because if you think about it, the titles of All My Heroes Are Cornballs and Veteran, both of those titles are, like, statements in and of themselves. And this one is, very just about the music. And I think there is some reflection of that. Maybe not necessarily in the lyrics, because those are always like, there's still political, there's still messages behind that. But maybe in the sense that his purpose and creation is more about the music. Maybe that would lend to a theory that it's just about fulfilling that contract, but he still wants to make good music for his fans. I don't know. I think there are ways to look at it, but I think it's more just calling the album LP, exclamation point. I just think it's a more exciting, weird, interesting way of just calling the album Untitled, if I'm being honest. Okay. At this point, I guess I'm gonna move to actually talking about the music. And the production here is probably the most absurd level we've ever seen him operating at. So you have end credits, for instance, which might be my favorite song on here, which takes a prog metal sample and combined with a wrestling monologue as the intro, and it twists this into some just absurd song, this crazy, insane beat, and then he just the fact that he's able to manage rapping over this with all this noise, all this aggression that needs to be channeled into this moment. I think it's honestly one of the best songs he's probably ever made. Full stop. It's incredible. But I think it's wrong to say that just the production is great, just in terms of the emotional capabilities of the music. Just how well it's able to, suspend this crazy ceiling of just sheer aggression. I think there are a lot more subtle, more complicated things that it can pull off as well. So you can take Nemo, for instance, which has this super weird outro where it's just completely bonkers, but not in they're very distorted. It's very aggressive in a sense. I think it's also there's some sort of just quality I think it's either a love or hate quality, because I've seen some people who aren't very fond of Nemo. But I think that's it's just very interesting, and I think that to the fullest extent is probably the Untitled ending, which it's difficult to place any sort of it's hard to pick out anything from it. Kind of it's almost just happening, not in the sense that it's boring, but in the sense that it's so abstract that it's it's hard to pick a melody out to sing from it. I mean even thinking of it now, I noted that song is one of the weirder cuts on the whole record, but I can't even put my finger on now what I would say on a melody line in that song. I'm trying to think. I think that creativity, that absurd level of just unique approaches to production is really what puts him out there. What I think distinguishes him from basically every other artist that's making music right now. And I think it's just the lengths and the quality that he gets. He's able to push it to such extremes while remaining in a sense, highly quality. You can play this for most. It's obviously out there, very underground. But I think you could play this for. I have friends who are super into more underground music. They listen to a decent amount of hip hop, and they're able to make sense of it. They're able to enjoy a lot of the songs that he puts out there. And I think that's a really admirable quality, that he's able to go so far in some senses, and yet still, remain appealing to more average listeners. Appealing, sort of in a loose sense, where they're able to still connect. Obviously, I don't think most of my friends who enjoy Bald, for instance, I don't think most of them are going to really latch on to hit this entire record, of course. But I think they'll still respect a lot of different the out there qualities about him, while remaining grounded. I think that's not just a testament to some greater appeal of his music, but I think it's actually really showcases his talent. For instance, on Twitter a week ago or something, he tweeted that he was the Jimi Hendrix of DAWs, digital audio workspaces, basically software you make beats in. And of course that was an inflammatory tweet, but you can realistically make a case just in terms of how far he's pushing the production that he's doing, in terms of just the sheer innovation and how unique of a style that he's developed with it. Think of it. I don't know how on earth you could go about ever writing a Jpegmafia song. I don't know how you could ever compose something just the off the wall absurdity that it makes. Maybe it is possible. Maybe there is a method to the madness, but I think it is so unique to him. I don't think you can make a quote unquote Jpegmafia type beat. He has a song called that. I don't think you can make one of those and have it be genuinely a good match, as compared to like some other artists, Now, we're approaching like the 10-minute mark here. Review is supposed to be like 3-4 minutes, and now it's at 10 minutes. Anyways, I think my tagline, my review summarized in just a few sentences is Jpegmafia's latest album might be his best yet. Certainly the hardest to place your finger on, for better or for worse. No, I didn't really talk about many things I disliked with this album because it was very good. My objective score for this record is going to be 8.8. Now, obviously getting a score that high entails that the music is very good. But obviously there are some things holding it back from being a 10. It wasn't like life-changing to an extent. I think it probably is. I think All My Heroes is Cornballs is better, and I'd probably give that like a 9.1. I think there are points where maybe just the difficulty in putting your finger on it can make it like a more difficult listening experience. Oh my gosh, I'm literally just running through the tagline. But yeah, essentially, I think it's really good overall. I'd recommend everyone go listen to it. It's probably a contender for album of the year for me. I don't think it's probably like my second or third favorite of this year. Very, very good. Anyways,